Hey Mark, hope you hit them well today. Before we launch into Flight Sim, I want to show you something online. There's a great site called SkyVector. This will give you any airport information that exists in the world. So let's start with just Deer Valley. We're gonna just do a traffic pattern loop from there, but you can start by typing that in up here and then hitting the information button. But there's just certain bits of info that's really gonna help you out. So first and foremost, what you want to get is the ATIS. Sometimes you'll see this as the AWOS. This is the Automated Terminal Information System, or the AWOS is Automated Weather Observation System. But this is what's going to give you important info like the current weather, specifically wind direction and how strong the winds are, if there are gusts, and then altimeter setting, very important as well, right? Any active runway information, etc. But what we want to do is pick up that frequency of 126.5. That's going to be in our COM1 when we start. And then some other information you might see here that would be of interest if you were flying in the traffic pattern, there wasn't a control tower managing traffic. You'd talk to other pilots on this frequency called CTAF. It's Common Traffic Advisory Frequency. But let's look here quickly. This is the airport diagram for Deer Valley. And I'm going to plan for 25 left rather. We'll listen for what the weather's telling us before we decide which runway to take off and land on. But some critical information here. You can see this field elevation, 1478. That's important as well. I'm just making a note here. So that would indicate, we'll round up, that the traffic pattern, if we round up to 1,500 feet, the traffic pattern will be 1,000 feet above that. So that's where the 2,500 foot traffic pattern comes into play for this particular airport. Okay, if we go back, we can actually look at some insight on that runway 25 left. So if we scroll down here, we can see runway 27 right, 25 left. It's the same runway, different ends, right? But if we look over here at runway 25 left, you can see there's that field elevation of 1,478 feet. We'll round that up to 1,500. This is a left-hand traffic pattern. So on departure from this runway, you'd be making a left circuit. Okay, that'd be a counterclockwise circuit. Notice if we were to depart the other end of the runway, we'd be in a right-hand circuit. And this is because we have two parallel runways, right? If you turn left, you'd be crossing over another runway. So that's obviously a no-no. And that's pretty much what you need to get started here, especially for just flying the pattern. And now let's go into Flight Sim and take a look at the information that you'll find in there. So if we want to go into DVT, we'll select KDVT. And again, I know we talked about potentially doing 27 left. Again, we'll figure that out on the weather, so we can select our runway here. But notice over here on the right-hand side, we have our runways, right? We can click on this frequencies tab. So if you remember, we had that ATIS frequency on 126.5. Right there it is, 126.5. So from this screen right here, you can see all the critical information that you need. So if we were to fly back to Goodyear, GYR. Okay, we could zoom into Goodyear. We could click on Goodyear, and we could get our frequencies at Goodyear. So here the ATIS, you'll notice, is 118.35, which again, we definitely need that because that's going to allow us to dial in our altimeter setting, which determines what our actual altitude will be above the traffic pattern, or in the traffic pattern. Okay, so we're just going to fly the loop here at Deer Valley, and let's get started. We'll set that as our departure. All right, Mark, here we are on runway 25 left, sitting on the displaced threshold of the runway. By displaced, we're allowed to take off on the displaced, but we actually can't land until we're past this threshold, the runway markings rather. But I want to review a couple things with you here on the ground before we fly the pattern. So if we come down to our main display, notice how this is our altimeter setting 29902. It's a default setting, okay? And this altimeter setting actually adjusts or calibrates where our altitude is. And if you see right now, the altitude's indicating about 1,250 feet. And if you remember from the chart that we looked at, the field elevation for this runway is 1,478 feet, okay? So notice when I come over here and I actually adjust my altimeter setting up, see how the numbers are ticking up here? The altitude's also ticking up, right? So just sitting on the ground, if I go to about 1,478 feet, all right, I can see that I should expect the altimeter for this airport to be sitting around 3016, okay? But I can get that by getting our ATIS information, which has all the weather conditions, active runways, and then the altimeter setting. So I'm just going to scroll that back for now. And then in order to get the ATIS information, I have to put that frequency of 126.5 into COM1, and I do that up here through this control. I'm using my mouse wheel to 126, and then you come up to the smaller one for the fine tuning, ratchet that down to 0.5, and this is in standby right now, so in order to put it in an active, I just hit this button right here, and we'll listen.
Deer Valley Airport information, Quebec 1700 Zulu. Wind calm. Visibility 10. Sky condition, no clouds below 12,000. Temperature 16. Dew point 10. Altimeter tree 0.17. Visual runway 7 right and visual runway 7 left in use. Landing and departing runway 25 left and runway 25 right. DFR aircraft say direction of flight. All aircraft read back hold short instructions. Advise controller on initial contact, you have Quebec.
All right, we're going to turn off that frequency so we don't hear that. All right, so a lot of information there. Put that up on the screen as it was going. But information Quebec, this update occurs once an hour. So LMNOPQR, so Romeo will be the next update. But right now, Quebec is current. Quebec is saying that winds are calm, no clouds below 12,000 feet. And our altimeter, which we thought, I think we said 3016, is 3017, right, which jives with our field elevation of 1,478 feet. This is indicating 1,480 feet. So we're very good. We're very close. And remember, we round that up to 1,500, so we know our pattern altitude is 1,000 above that. So at 2,500 feet is where we're going to fly the pattern. Okay. So very important to have this field, the altimeter setting dialed in, especially when you're flying to an airport. Weather conditions are always changing. Your barometric pressure is always changing. And this is what is calibrating your altitude based on current barometric pressure conditions. That's why when you're in flight, it's important to get this information for the airport that you're going to be landing at. Again, it tells you where to enter the pattern and where you can expect to touch down. Okay, so you also heard active runways for landing and departures, runway 27 left, 27 right, winds are calm, so we could go off either if we needed to, either being 7 right or 25 left, but we're on 25 left, so we'll stay on 25 left. Okay. All right. Let's run this thing up. So I'm looking for my airspeeds here, and I have to get familiar with this aircraft. So this is a new modern 172. I learned on a very old 172 that had it all analog and miles per hour for my speed. All of this is in knots, and our rotation speed is 55 knots for this aircraft, and we're going to climb out at 74 knots. Now, one thing to note, when you're on the climb out and you're just flying the pattern, I wait till I'm 500 feet above ground level. So remember ground level, we're going to round up to 1500. So at 2000 feet, that's when I'll start my crosswind turn, which is the first left-hand turn into the left-hand traffic pattern here. Okay, and I'll talk you through this as we go. Okay, Mark, one thing I didn't have a chance to mention here because I was having so many Microsoft software crash issues with the stupid screen recording is I did bug the altitude. So you will see that with this knob over here, we'll actually change this up here to 2,500. So I bugged it to the traffic pattern altitude, right? So it's a good visual while I'm in flight to just see where I am relative to the pattern altitude. And the other thing that I did was this heading knob here, if you click right in the middle of the heading knob, it'll actually take this little bug and put it exactly on your current heading where you're at right now, which in our case is our runway heading. Okay, so as we fly the pattern, when you first make your left crosswind, you will see that bug drift holding its current 256 heading, right? That 256 and the bug will actually land at the 3 o'clock once we're in our crosswind. And then once we turn left base, you'll see 256 and the bug migrate all the way down here at the 6 o'clock position. And then when we turn onto base, those will migrate over to the 9 o'clock position. And then as we turn final, they'll be in front of us again. Okay. So again, good visuals to have in front of you just to keep a reference and whereabouts. So at this point, my computer capture just completely stopped working, which forced me to get out an iPhone to record this from afar, hence the quality you're getting. But I wanted to zoom in real quickly and show you here how that heading is now bugged and the altitude is set for 2500. And now I get to do voiceover work on the rest of this video. So here we go. I'm ramping up to full throttle. You can see my power, my RPMs are set. My engine instruments are in the green. I'm looking for my airspeed to come alive as it just did. And at 55 knots is when we will look at rotating, using a little bit of right rudder to hold that center line. There is 55 knots, low and gentle, easy back pressure. We're letting lift do the work here to get the plane moving. So VY is 74 knots. You can see I'm getting fast. I'm at 80. So here, just pitch, pull back a little bit more. It'll start bleeding off some of that speed, at least arrest the acceleration. So you can see I'm pitched up a little steeper and my airspeed's dropping to that 74 preferred level. It's okay to be a little bit higher as well. And here I'm looking for 500 feet above ground level before I start that crosswind. Remember, ground level here is 1500, so that would put us at 2000 before starting that left-hand turn to crosswind. We're starting that left-hand turn now at about a 20-degree bank. Give 20 to 30. I always just ginger it over. I like 20-degree banks. And you see that heading bug now is moving to that 3 o'clock position. We're maintaining our pitch. And our airspeed's looking really good, 75. Remember, we wanted to climb out around 74. So we roll out as we get that heading bug near the 3 o'clock position. Now we're on our crosswind. And here we make a crosswind call. Deer Valley, Cessna Skyhawk 5778 Tango is on a left crosswind, runway 25 left, Deer Valley. All right, we're approaching 2500. We level the plane off. And here I actually did use a little bit of trim because I noticed with my yoke that really helps. The airplane that I fly, I do not need trim in the pattern at 2100 RPM, but I have pulled that power back to 2100 RPM, as you noticed. So here we're turning to our downwind leg, and we're getting that bug into this 6 o'clock position. You can see the nice road out in front of us. That's a really good visual flying VFR to know that you're parallel to this runway. The airport is off to our left. As you can see, here we run our pre-landing checklist, seats and seatbelts securely fastened, our fuel tanks are on both, mixture's full rich. We don't have carb heat in this aircraft, and lights as required. Pre-landing checklist is complete. Deer Valley traffic, Skyhawk 5778 Tango is downwind midfield, runway 25 left, Deer Valley. at our beam right now. So here we're pulling that power back to about 1700. I want to keep that nose still in its proper attitude so we bleed off our airspeed and get inside the white arc. It's important to be inside that white arc because that's our flap operating range. If we extend flaps before getting to that white arc, we could do structural damage. So we put in 10 degrees of flaps and we let that nose pitch forward ever so slightly, still maintaining that heading bug behind us on our 6 o'clock. And here I usually like to leave the pattern altitude by about 300 feet before starting my base. And here we're starting our base. We're introducing 20 degrees of flaps. And now we're pitching for an airspeed of about 60 to 75 knots. So you can see I'm starting to get slow there. So this is a good time to start bringing in some power. You can see my RPMs are at 1700. Notice the foothills off to our right. There's a thing in aviation called controlled flight into terrain in daylight conditions, which is a common case of people dying. So you need to be mindful of this stuff. But here we make another radio call. Deer Valley traffic, Skyhawk 5778 Tango is on left base, runway 25 left, Deer Valley. Okay, and here we are getting slow, so we definitely want to give it a little bit of power, get us back into the 70 to 75 knot range. And again, it's easier to judge this final turn when you're in a real aircraft. You have the limited views here in the sim, so I don't know why, but my controller really seemed to want to pitch up here, and I was pushing forward to nose this thing down. So we've introduced 30 degrees of flaps, and we're shooting now for crossing the runway numbers at 62 to 65 knots. You can see I'm a little fast, so start pulling power back. Get that center line underneath the butt. Hold the center line and manage descent through power. So if we notice we're dropping too fast, we introduce a little bit of power to arrest the descent. We're looking pretty good as we're getting closer to that 62 to 65 over the threshold. There it is. Pull that power to idle, shifting the eyes down the runway, keeping the focus all the way down to the end of the runway and holding it off best we can till touchdown. Let that nose wheel gently come down. And you have so much runway here, as things are over 8,000 feet long. You can just simply do some aerodynamic braking, and that's just pulling the yoke all the way back nice and gentle till full deflection. That's where you get the aerodynamic braking. You don't even need to touch the brakes on the tops of the rudder pedals. So that's it in a nutshell. If you have any questions, let me know. Good luck. See ya.